All right, what is going on, guys? So today what I'm going to do is give you a rundown of the 3000 GT drift car. Now I know a lot of you guys are new to the channel, and at the same time a lot of you guys have been around for a while, so you know the backstory of this car. So for those of you that are new, I'm going to answer I'm going to give you the rundown, but then I also have some questions that people submitted on my Instagram that I'm going to go through and answer about specific things on the car that you guys were wondering regards to setup or backstory, whatever it may be. So here she is. She's a 92 Mitsubishi 3000 GT base model. Now you may be wondering, okay, it's a base model. One, how is it twin turbo? Two, how is it rear wheel drive? So the quick rundown is that this car was all wheel drive converted because it came non-turbo, automatic, and front wheel drive from the factory. So I have a full Mitsubishi GTO drivetrain in here, which is the same as the VR4s in the United States. So it's a twin turbo 6G72 engine, a 5-speed manual transmission, and then the whole drivetrain, like in the back, the whole all-wheel drive subframe and all that gives me the rear diff and the drive shaft and all out of the GTO. So this car, like I said, started its life as a true base model, and it went through a twin turbo engine swap, went through a manual conversion, and it went through the all-wheel drive conversion on the chassis. So right now this is the only 3000 GT that drifts in the United States, and I think one of the only ones that's Mitsubishi powered in the world right now. So it's a pretty basic setup at the end of the day. I mean, it took me a while to get to where it is now, but all in all, this car is set up very simply, and it runs well and stays reliable at the track, which is something I can't say I was really expecting from the start when I dove into this project. It was kind of just hope for the best and see what happens. So I'll start with the interior here. Interior consists of a grip roller wheel with a D&D performance quick release that is splined. So I can pop that guy off real quick. I have a e-brake handbrake handle here, but I replaced the master with a Willwood master cylinder, did a hard line to a Willwood 2 psi residual pressure valve, and then a hard line to the dual calipers in the rear that are mounted on a custom bracket. Now those dual calipers are stock first gen turbo calipers, and then for my foot brake I have 2G calipers, which are like a Brembo style, like the Evos in the rear. I have NRG seats right now. I will be getting a Halo seat for this car, I believe, but right now it's NRG seats, NRG harnesses, the new style with the nice pads here, and then a Safety 21 bolt-in half cage that also came out of the GTO donor car, but I also had a harness bar added into the half cage so that I can mount the harnesses in the car properly and safely. I also have, as far as the shifter goes, it's a 3SX short throw shifter. It's just their generic one, and then a Serial 9 weighted and adjustable weighted shifter. Gauge wise, I have Pro Sport gauges up top here. We have boost and water temp. Here I have a mechanical boost gauge, just like a parts store one. I have that in there because right now this boost sensor is kind of giving me issues from time to time. So I put this mechanical one in before an event and it just kind of stayed there. I have a Ninja Performance oil pressure gauge, and I have an AEM wideband gauge in this panel here that deletes the stock vents and still maintains the 4-way button. Other than that, I removed the lower dash here, but I still have my wiper button for my tire sprayers. And then, yeah, other than, like, the interior is pretty simple. Deleted the center console for the fire extinguisher, and then we gutted the back half. There's another fire extinguisher back there. The panel there for my fuel pumps, and the firewall. Broadway mirror, what's up? And that's about it. I wanted to keep this thing as a clean street car and also still be able to shred at the track, so I kept full front half interior for the most part, and I plan on keeping it pretty much how it is right now. Moving around to the trunk, I have a whole full tube rear that we did 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, and I will be redoing it because I crashed into the wall and bent it up pretty good. But I have a Jazz fuel cell here. I have a pre-filter, a pump, a surge tank, another pump that feeds the engine, and then we got the battery back here. Then under the hood, it's a simple 6G72 setup. I'm first off still stock injector. So I have all that fuel system stuff and lines from the front to the back. And then I have 15G turbochargers, a simple intake here with a green filter, a CX Racing hard pipe kit, Grams Performance fuel pressure gauge, AEM fuel pressure regulator, the 3SX loop here. I have a mechanical oil pressure gauge just to make sure everything is reading properly. And like I said, there's nothing really crazy done under the hood here. I have a wire tuck that I did, Turbo Smart Mac valve mounted there, and the car is tuned by Hans at Ground Zero Performance on the chrome ECU, and it made 330 wheel horsepower, which is pretty good for a stock injector car. And yeah, I'm really happy with those numbers. And getting it tuned before the last event, I could really feel the difference in power and how it was way more fine-tuned when it came down to it. Suspension I'm going to cover in the questions, but exterior wise, I have the Bomex style or Kaz Aircraft style front lip from MMC 3000 GT. I have Enki RPF ones in an SBC finish, 18 by 10.5 all around. I have the C7 carbon fiber wide body front fenders, the vented ones. I have C7 rear fiberglass over fenders, and these guys are just bolted on, so it's a wide body car at this point. And then I have the Bomex style side skirts, which I don't know if you can see with them bleeding black, but the Bomex style side skirts from MMC 3000 GT as well. I have a D-Max style hood vent right here that's just riveted on. And then I have no wing at the moment. I used to have an active aero wing with a duckbill add-on that slid over it, but I'm currently in the process of figuring out the new wing situation for the car. In the back here, I used to have JDM tails until I crashed into a wall, but I did a half cut bumper and half cut second gen bumper, so you can kind of see that tube rear under there. But I do have the first gen bumper that will eventually be making its way back onto the car. So the first question I got asked on Instagram was, what is my suspension setup, being that the front of the car is so heavy? Now, this is Megan Racing coilovers. It's Megan Racing coilovers, and the Megan coilovers come with 12K springs all around, and I felt that was a little soft. So I have 14K springs up front. I have the 12K springs in the back, but I went with the 14K, but I did iBox springs because the quality of the spring is better when it comes to the spring rate, the finish of it, and I got a shorter spring so I could properly set preload at this height that I'm at. So that was what was really important, is getting the coilover set up properly at the height that I'm at. By getting, it was about an inch shorter spring than what the Megan coilover came with. The hardest part about making this car a drift car, that was question number 2, was probably just steering angle and the suspension from the factory. So these cars have like no caster adjustment from the factory, and they have no steering angle because usually there's a CV joint coming out through that front wheel, so you can't overextend the CV. So once I finally designed my front suspension and took all the measurements, and I had poly fabricate the pieces that I need, and I built some tie rods and all that, it was fantastic. Car self steers, car feels so much better, and I think that was the biggest hurdle that I had to jump when it came to making this car a good drift car. It's just getting that front suspension dialed in and getting the adjustability and alignment settings that I really needed to make the car perform well. How much boost am I making? 11 pounds. The car makes about 11 pounds of boost up until I think like 5,000 RPM or something like that, and then it dials back down to like 9 PSI because we were getting a little bit of knock up at high RPM, but in order to avoid that, knock the boost down 2 PSI while tuning, and it's good now. So about 11 PSI usually, and then a high RPM, we're running about 9. What's the info on the transmission and what's the information on the wrap of the car? So It's a stock 3000 GT VR4 transmission. I had one of my buddies weld the center differential in it, which locks it, the front and the rear basically. So then power goes to the rear wheels, and we removed the front axle stubs from the transmission, and we removed the axles bars, but we left the outside ends in the transmission and bolted into the wheel hub right here. So that basically made the car rear wheel drive completely. Now the wrap is a Hexus color, and it is gloss black metallic fine glitter, something along the lines of that, and it looks insane in the sun. Like, it's so hard to capture on camera, but like when the sun hits it, the glitter is just wild. So the next question is, what did I do for angle, and how did I get the camber up front? So I'm going to start the car real quick here. All right, I'm gonna turn the wheel here for you guys. So in here, you will see right there is an extension on the lower control arm. That is a 1 5/8 of an inch extension to basically get me the camber setting that I desired. And it's a stock control arm. We did it after the sway bar mount, and then in between that and the lower ball joint. And that basically got me the camber that I wanted. And then we were able to rotate the top hats of the coilover to turn them into a caster camber plate. So instead of having this straight in and out to just be camber, I was able to rotate it 1 notch, and now it's a camber and caster. So doing this got me 7 degrees of positive caster, which is fantastic for getting this car to self-steer. Then I have a set of cut knuckles done by TJ One Motion, and those knuckles were shortened 1.5 inches as opposed to my previous 3/4 of an inch shortened knuckles, and they are what got me the more steering angle. And then on top of that, I had to build tie rods, which you could see right there. They utilize parts from a Honda Odyssey inner, and then a 1-inch tube that has 2 different thread pitches on each side that I made here, and a Heim joint outer with the ability to add bump steer correction in it. So that whole setup gave me way more steering angle. I mean, this isn't all of it, but this is as much as I could turn dry. Way more steering angle, and made the car handle so much better on track. So then comes the question of why a 3000 GT. So let me give you the quick backstory. My aunt bought this car brand new in 1992. I have the original receipt from the dealership down the road of this car being purchased. When I was younger, she sold it to my uncle, and I used to go for rides in this car when it was still a base model regular 3000 GT, and I was like in elementary school, and I idolized this exact car, and someday I was like, I want that car. So then my uncle ended up selling it when I was in high school, and I was fortunate enough to be able to buy it, and that's when my journey started with this car. So there's a serious sentimental attachment to this car, and that's why I started building this car. However, I always just wanted this car to be all-wheel drive and be like a show car, and that's kind of how the build started. Before I started this whole YouTube thing, this car started as a show car, all-wheel drive, VR4 swapped car. But the next question is, at what point did I decide to chop this thing up and start drifting it? Well, pretty much when all my friends started drifting. So Kendrick started drifting first, like out of our core group of friends. And when we were crewing for him, I was like, all right, yeah, like I need to build a drift car. It's time, let's build a drift car. But I didn't have the money. I didn't have the space to start an entire new build at the time. So I was like, you know what? I have my 3000 GT here. It's never been done before. Oh, there goes my notes. It's never been done before. So I'm going to try and convert this thing into a drift car. And somehow it has gone way better than I had expected. But there's been no shortage of headaches throughout the entire process. Plenty of people have advised me not to do it, but I just couldn't hold myself from at least giving it a shot, because I feel like driving a different car nowadays says so much more than just a cookie cutter build. And I have something in the works right now that will just further expand that whole not staying within the norm of things when it comes to drifting. And the last question that I'm going to answer in this video that was submitted on Instagram, which you guys should go follow me on Instagram. My Instagram's down below. But the last question I'm going to answer is, what are my future goals for this car? And next week, this car is going to its new home. So I want you guys to stay tuned, and basically the future goals of this car really will start taking shape when this thing goes to its new home next week. So follow us along on that journey. Morgan and I are going to be taking a very big road trip, and I have some really cool announcements to make to you guys that and I'm really excited to be able to bring you guys along with us. But this thing's going to be gone, and yeah, it's going to be weird not seeing it in the old driveway anymore, but stay tuned for that. Don't unsubscribe yet. So I hope you guys that are new to the channel kind of have a better idea and understanding of the 3000 GT. If you have any other questions, drop them down below, and I will answer them, you know, throughout the videos. And I mean, I hope you guys that have followed this car and its history are still familiar, and you know, if I filled you in on anything that you may have missed throughout the video series. But shout out to Stansco, obviously, Mr. Walnut, Paulie for the fabrication work, McLeod Racing for the clutch in this car. We run a stage 4 McLeod clutch, and Wergs Automotive for always assisting me and keeping this thing clean. With that, like the video, subscribe to the channel, guys, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.